Hello everyone, in this video we are going to learn how we can integrate PayPal payment gateway in our Laravel application. Here you can see this in my Visual Studio Code editor. I have a Laravel project in which I just have designed a simple product overview page, and what I want to do, I want to integrate PayPal. When I click this pay with PayPal button, and I want to pay this $200 price with PayPal when I click this pay with PayPal button. So in order to do this, the first thing you need is obviously a PayPal account. So we are going to create a PayPal account, then we will integrate PayPal with our application. So to create PayPal account, you just need to go to the developer.paypal.com. Now in order to create your PayPal developer account, you just need to go to the login to dashboard button. So click this login to dashboard button. Now if you have already a PayPal account, then you can log in directly from here, but we are going to create a new account, so just click sign up. Now the first thing you need, choose your location, then add your email, a correct working email, and then create a new password. Now it will ask you to pass a security challenge, so select the correct images, and then you are good to go to use your PayPal account. Now this is the dashboard of our PayPal account, and from here we can generate our API keys and integrate our application to the PayPal. And here you can see there are two options here. One is the sandbox and the other one is the live option. So if you are working on a live server, you can upgrade your account, but we are working on a testing server, so we are going to choose this sandbox option and then create a new app. So click this create app button. Now in here you just need to fill up some details like your application name and your application type. So let's say I am going to give e-commerce app because my application is not live. Then select platform, your app type, and then you can also select the country, then select create app. So here you can see our application has been created in our PayPal account, and we got our client ID and secret key that we need to add in our Laravel application.env file. Now let's jump to the coding part of our application. So let's go to the project, your Laravel project, and open your .env file from your application, from your project. And in here in .env file you have to add the PayPal client ID and the PayPal secret ID. So let's add the PayPal client ID and the PayPal secret ID. So the first one we need to add is the PayPal client ID. Now let's paste the client ID from the PayPal dashboard from your to your .env file. Now let's add a PayPal secret client ID. I would name it as PayPal client secret. You can name it as you want, and then paste your client secret, and then you can also add the PayPal currency that you want to use. So let's say I want to use USD, so let's say let's enter PayPal currency equals to USD. Now after adding these credentials into your .env file, let's create a model and migration for payment table. So let's open a new terminal and let's run php artisan make model payment and then -m. -m will actually create the migration for payment model. Now let's go to the migration that we have created, that is payment migration, and let's add the columns that we need in our payments table. So the first one is the ID and then the payment ID, and then the second one is the payer ID, that who is going to pay, and the third one is the payer email. So, and the fourth one is the amount, that is the necessary part of our payments. Now we can also add the currency column in this table to store the currency of the amount that is paid, and we can also add the column for payment status to store the payment status, either the payment is paid or not. Now let's migrate this table into our database. So first we need to create a database. So let's go to the PHP my admin and create a new database for the application. So you can create your database with the name you want. I'm going to create my database with a name PayPal app. Now let's go to your env file and let's add the database name that you have created for your application, and let's open a new terminal and let's migrate the migration with PHP artisan migrate. Now after migrating, let's go and install the package that we are going to install into our application to integrate PayPal with our Laravel application. So the package that we are going to use is the Omnipay Laravel package. So let's go to your browser and search for Omnipay Laravel. So this is the package that we are going to use in our application, that is league/Omnipay. So let's install this package into our application. Now let's open your Visual Studio Code and open a new terminal and let's install this package with Composer. Composer require league/Omnipay and then Omnipay/PayPal, because we are going to integrate PayPal into our application. You can also integrate Stripe with the help of this package. Now we have successfully installed this package into our application. Now let's make a new controller for handling the payment request or integrating the PayPal into our application. So let's make a new controller with PHP artisan make controller and then payment controller. You can name this controller as you want, like PayPal controller, but I'm going to name it as payment controller. Now let's open that controller that we have created, that is payment controller, and in this controller we will write all the logic to integrate payment gateway. So first of all, let's make a variable with a name gateway and then make a constructor, and in this constructor we will assign this gateway variable Omnipay class. So let's assign the Omnipay class, and the function we will call from this Omnipay class is the create function, and in this create function we have to pass an argument that is PayPal rest. Now we will assign the client ID and the secret ID to this Omnipay class. So to assign this client ID, we can use the set client ID function from this Omnipay class, and in this function we can pass the client ID that we have added into our .env file. So let's open your .env file, and here you can see we named it as PayPal client ID, so pass it in here and then set the secret client ID, and this will also as same as we have added in our .env file, and the function we will use is the set secret function, and in this function we will pass the name of the secret ID that we have added in our .env file, and then we can use another function that is set test mode. So this function is used in a testing mode because we are in a testing mode, so we will pass it as true. Now after setting up the credential into your constructor, let's make another function with a name pay, and this function will responsible to handle the payment request from your website to PayPal. So let's write the logic, use try catch because it is a good approach, and in here let's make a variable response, and let's pass a function in this variable that is purchase function from the Omnipay class, and in this function we need to pass an array. The first argument of this array is the amount that we want to pay with the help of PayPal, and the second argument is the currency in which we want to pay this amount, and we can get the currency from our .env file. So let's get the currency that we have added in our .env file. Now the third argument is the return URL. So if the payment successful, where you want to return this request, so you want to return this back, or you want to return this into your customer dashboard or home page, so you can pass it in here. And the fourth argument is the cancel URL, and this is the URL that if the payment cancelled or if the payment cannot be paid, then where you want to redirect the user. So we need to pass these four arguments into this function. Now let's write the if statement. If this response is successful, then we want to redirect our request to the PayPal payment page, and if it is not, in the else statement we just want to get the or return the message, the error message. And in this catch statement or catch block, we just want to return the message, the error message, that what was wrong or why this request failed. Now we have successfully write all of the business logic into our controller. So let's go to the front end part of our application. So what I want to do, I want to integrate this PayPal when I click this pay with PayPal button. So let's go to this index.blade.php file in which I have designed this product overview page. Now in here, in this index.blade.php file, we need to add a form that will handle the payment post request. But before that, we need to define the route that will handle the request, the PayPal payment request. So let's go to the web.php and let's define your route that will be a post route, and this will use the payment controller, and the function is the pay function that we have write in our payment controller. Now we can use this route in this form. So let's pass this route in this action of this form, and the method will be post. And don't forget to add the CSRF token into your form. Then we need to add the input, hidden input, to pass the amount as a request to the controller. So here you can see this is the amount that we are getting from the request from this form. Now we need to add this 200 value in this input. So let's add the value. If you are getting dynamic value from the database, then you just have to add the dynamic value, but I'm just adding the static value. Now let's include this button in this form, and let's add the type of this button equals to submit. Now let's save this file and then let's refresh the application. So we got an error, route doesn't found. So let's correct the route, that is payment. Now let's refresh this and let's click this pay with PayPal. Okay, so we got an error and call to undefined method is direct. So this is our response and this is our is direct function. So this is correct. Okay, so we didn't add the send function with purchase function. So let's add this and save this. Now let's again test this out. So we got another error, that is authentication failed due to the invalid credentials. So let's go to the constructor of this payment controller, and in here we have added the credentials. So this is because I didn't use the env function in here, because we are getting this PayPal client ID and the secret ID from the env file. So I have to use env function. So let's test this out again. Okay, so we have successfully integrated and implemented PayPal with our Laravel application. Here you can see. Now to go further and pay this $200 with PayPal, you can use your testing accounts. Go to your dashboard and go to accounts and in here you can find some default or some testing accounts that you can use. So here you can see these are 3 accounts, so you can use any one of them. So let's use this personal account. So here you can see this is your testing email, so copy it from here and let's paste it in here. Click next. Now for the password, you can also get this from your dashboard, so copy it from here and then paste it in here and click login. Now here you can see you can now pay with PayPal, and here you can see this is the $200 USD amount that is directly coming from your form, coming from your website, that you can pay with PayPal. So we have successfully integrated the PayPal payment gateway in our Laravel application. So click continue. It will processing your amount. Now it will get 404 not found error. This is because we didn't add the success function and the error function in this controller. So let's add this function, add the function success function and the error function in this controller. So in this success function, we have to first check either in the payment ID and the payer ID is in the request. So if both payer ID and payment ID is in the request, then we can continue our transaction. Now let's make a variable transaction, and this variable will call a function complete purchase from the Omnipay class, and in this function we have to pass an array, and in this function the first argument will be the payer ID that is coming from the request, and the second argument is the transaction reference, and it is also coming from the request as a name payment ID. So we have successfully processed the transaction. Now let's send this transaction with the help of send function. You also need to store the transaction information in a response, because we need to check this response if the response is successful, if the transaction is successful or not. So let's call a function is successful. So if this response is successful, that means if transaction is successful, then we will store all of the transaction information into the payment table. So let's do this. Let's save all of the transaction information into the payment table. Now after storing or saving all of the transaction into the payment table, let's return a simple message: payment is successful, your transaction ID is, and we can get the transaction ID from the ARR variable because it is getting all of the data from the response. Now let's save this, and if response is not successful, in the else part we can return that the response error with the help of getMessage function. Now if the payment ID and the payer ID is not in the request, then in the outer else part we can return that payment is declined. Now let's write another function, that is error function, and this function is actually responsible for handling the cancel URL response. Okay, so if user cancel the payment, then we will just return a simple message that user declined the payment. Now let's test our application again. Okay, so let's go back to the home page, that is product overview screen, but before that we need to add the success URL and the success route and the error route. So let's add the success route and the error routes. Now we have completely set up all of the project, all of the payment integration work. Now let's test this application again. So here you can see this is a PayPal part. Now let's pay this by clicking continue. and here you can see we got a successful message that payment is successfully paid, your transaction ID is this. So we have successfully integrated PayPal payment gateway into our Laravel application, and I hope that this video will help you in integrating PayPal in your application, in your Laravel application. If you face any problem or issue, just mention your problem in the comment box of this video.